Well, howdy, howdy, everybody. Welcome on this beautiful Saturday morning. It's December 6th, 2025. I thought I'd do something interesting, something unusual this morning. It's a cold, wet, dreary day outside here in Southeast Alabama. And I thought I'd just hop on here and talk a little bit about bees. Want to kind of gear this talk today towards new beekeepers, or, of course, anyone who is more experienced. You're more than welcome to be here in the chat today, or if you watch it later, to provide comments for both me and for those who may be trying to get into beekeeping. November, December, January, really right now, December is the best time if you are a new beekeeper to look into getting into bees. It's a time when you can find equipment still for the spring. It's a time when you can hopefully still order bees and kind of get things figured out. So I thought it'd be a great time to do this live stream here and hopefully almost in a podcast form so folks can listen to it driving down the road, listen to it working out in the shop or whatever they want to do, and maybe be able to provide some ideas or things that can help them in their beekeeping adventure, whether they're just getting started or maybe have a few years of experience, a little bit of experience. My name is Bruce. Jenny, I live in Southeast Alabama here in Dothan, and but I'm going to talk a little bit at the end of the video about my direction with the channel, some things I want to maybe change a little bit and do in the future. But I want to start off by telling my story of how I started with bees. Hopefully, this will uh, maybe inspire some folks to get into bees. Maybe it'll discourage some folks from getting into bees. But I want to tell my story briefly here before I get into some of the topics for today's chat while folks are hopping on here. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit of a crowd. This is kind of a last minute thing today. But I got started with bees in 2013. In the fall of 2012, my father was very sick. He had cancer. He passed away from pancreatic cancer in January of 2013. At the time, I was, of course, that was devastating. But in the fall of 2012, I had a couple of things that kind of piqued my interest in. I had a couple of things that kind of got me interested in keeping bees. Number one, and I don't remember the order of these two things, but number one, I did home health physical therapy at the time. I'm a physical therapist for my real job. And I had a patient, he was an older fella, and he's since passed on, but he had some beehives in his backyard. And so we talked about it, and he just he just loved his bees. He loved to talk about them, and he loved to describe kind of what goes on in the hive. And man, it was so much fun talking to him. And it kind of inspired me, kind of got the interest up a little bit. And then somewhere around that time, I think it was in October of 2012, there was a talk given at one of our general conferences for our church. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and one of the gentlemen speaking talked about bees, and he gave some facts about bees. I think he mentioned, some of the standard things we hear that in a beehive there are around 40,000 bees. I actually think there's more like 40 to 60,000 in a production colony that's full of bees, if not even more. But I think he said 40,000 bees. Each bee is responsible for a twelfth of a teaspoon of honey. And he basically, the comment or the idea behind the talk was that even though each bee plays a very small part, um, it is part of a much greater thing, and great things can be accomplished. When you think about what bees can accomplish, a little tiny insect that can produce, together working as a team, as a unit, they can produce so many marvelous things, to include the honey, the beeswax, the propolis, and so many more things. And it's just a miracle to me. It's a divine thing. Every time I open a honeybee colony, I look in there. It's like a gift at Christmas. Hopefully that's what it's like. Sometimes it's a little discouraging, but you just never know exactly what you're going to find. But as you watch the bees work in harmony, and as they synchronize their activities, it is just something that is just absolutely miraculous to me. And so those couple of events, and then got me. I've always been interested in insects and nature and things like that. I grew up on a farm, but for some reason, that little bit of a spark in my heart, in my soul, to be interested in it. When my father passed away in January of 2013, I asked my mom if I could put bees up there. Actually, I waited a little while, and I asked her. She obviously, before then, she was worried about him and didn't need to be bothered with something as trivial as that. But she said I could, and so I remember it was April. I think it was April 27th. It was around that time frame of 2013. I went to my I went to a guy named David Eldridge. He was a local guy here that built the bee boxes himself. He actually bought milled pine and he built the boxes out of that and painted them. And I bought a couple of nukes from him. That's a story for another day, how I found out about David. But I just remember uh, bringing those beehives. I bought two to start off with, carrying them across the driveway there at the farm, putting them on the cinder block stands, and just beaming and so excited and happy to have these bees. And it's hard to stay at them for a week or two, like I was told. I did. I think I did what he told me. But when I finally got in them, the first time I got in bees actually was the morning before I picked him up. A friend of mine let me go through some of his bees to see what it was like. But it was just, I was hooked, from the moment I opened those two hives and those bees started flying around, I was hooked. And long story short, I started off, I did like so many people do. I was super excited, didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I made a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of extra money I probably didn't have to spend at first on queens and things like that. Um, but later in the chat today, I want to talk about a couple of topics that can kind of help new beekeepers prevent some of those extra expenses or headaches. But I have loved it ever since then. It was April of 2013, and I have never looked back. I started off with a couple of colonies, just thinking, hey, I want to have some bees just for fun. I then got up to four. My brother bought a couple of colonies too, which it wasn't really his thing. He didn't keep doing bees for very long. But so that first year I had four colonies. I think I split a couple of them, and then I ended up going through the winter with six, and I thought I had it figured out. The next spring they started swarming on me, so I was catching swarms like crazy, just living the dream. I had an accident in, I think it was March 29th, I believe it was, of 2014. I was actually just caught a swarm and I was working on some bee boxes. I lost a finger, table saw accident. That's when I started the YouTube channel. I had several weeks there where I was out of work. And so I had a big like bandage cast thing on my arm, but I was doing it one handed out there, just, trying to do some beekeeping stuff. Some of those old original videos are pretty raw. They're not very good, from a YouTube standpoint, but they actually, some of them have quite a few views, and I really didn't know what I was doing. But the channel to this point has been more of a vlog. I did YouTube for a year or two there, then I got out of it for a few years, and in 2018 I came back. When they actually took the finger off, they repaired it initially. They actually ended up taking the finger off, and that's when I had a little more time to really get serious about YouTube and trying to grow this channel and share my journey with each of you. So that's a brief story background of myself, my beekeeping journey, and the YouTube channel here. Since 2018, it's been really marvelous and miraculous in a way that folks even want to watch my stuff. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination a tech guy. I'm not really, I really don't know what I'm doing. I know more now than I did, obviously, when I started in YouTube. Same thing with bees. I've learned a lot. I've spent a lot of hours in the bees. I'm not a master beekeeper. I don't claim that, and I don't know if I ever will be. Maybe I'll take the course, maybe I won't. But I can tell you I've logged a lot of hours in beehives. I've seen a lot of things, both in my bees, and we've had obviously discussions on the YouTube channel here through the Stream Team Beekeeping chat. You can go back and see some of those videos if you'd like, where I go on with Brian Coper from Castle Hives, Greg Burns from Nature's Image Farm. We rotate through the channels on Wednesday nights. And we've had a lot of great discussions. So many of you that are in the chat, so many of you that are going to watch this video after the fact, I'm sure, have been able to participate in those. And I've learned from each of you. I've learned so many things through the comments. And so it's been a great journey. So I don't claim to be an expert. I don't claim to be a master beekeeper because I'm not. I still learn every time I get in the hives. I learn new things. Every year seems to present new challenges. Every hive can present new challenges. Every hive you crack open and look at that colony of bees, there can be a new challenge. Some that you think are strong may fade, and some that you think are going to be weak may blow up and be strong. And so you just never really know. That's one of the cool things about beekeeping. So that's kind of my introduction today. I wanted to kind of share my story with you and let you know I love this beekeeping thing. Of course, at times I get burnt out, and at times it becomes difficult, and at times it's just absolute pure bliss. It's just so fun and so cool to be a part of it. So for those of you who may be watching this video either live here or after the fact, I would just encourage you to take a good hard look at beekeeping, whether you're already a beekeeper or if you're new, kind of looking to get into it. It is an incredible ride, but I will say this, it's not for everyone. I played a lot of football over the years. I played high school and college football, and football is a sport. It hurts. It's painful. It's hot and sweaty. Most sports are, but football is extremely, it's extremely grueling and tough, and it's just not for everyone. And it's kind of that way with bees. Bees are just not for everyone. You are going to get stung. I mean, some people swear that they never get stung by their bees. Their bees are so gentle and they are so nice, and that they're perfect bees, and that's because they're really gentle with their bees and they're good beekeepers. But you're going to get stung if you have bees, more than likely. I've had some very feisty bees, and now I have much nicer bees. But even still, with the nice bees, if on a day like today where it's cloudy and dreary, if you go out and start messing with them, even the nicest of bees can get a little agitated with you if you start going in there. And so that's uh, that's kind of, I'm trying to kind of keep track of the comments here as we go along. Um, if I if I miss some of the questions, apologize for that. But so I've learned a lot, and I hope to share some of those ideas with you. And like I said earlier, for those who are hopping on a little bit later here, I plan to kind of, at the end of this chat here, towards the end of the video, I want to kind of talk about the direction of the channel moving forward. There are going to be a few changes to it. Some things are going to stay the same, some are going to change. I'm still trying to figure that out, but I want to kind of give you an idea of where things are with the channel. So let's just drop a little bit of, I like to share some information here. And before we move on, if you have any questions, you can throw them in the comment section here. I'll try to address them, or I'll try to star them if I can. If they're in all caps, it's easier to see those questions, of course. But I'm not sure if I'll get to them all today. If I don't, I apologize. I hope to do more of these type of live chats one-on-one in the future. So um, if I don't get to them today, just hold them until the next time, or until one of our stream team videos on Wednesday nights. I see people checking in here. It's a Saturday morning. It's dark. It's kind of cold, dark, and dreary outside. And I appreciate folks coming in from all over the country. I've got some folks in from the West Coast and different places, and I appreciate you guys being here. I want to address primarily today, I wanted to talk about some just bee basic topics. And it's going to be kind of a general type video for folks that are looking at getting into beekeeping, say new beekeepers, those who have kind of been stirring that idea around in their brain over the years, and they think it'd be kind of cool to get in bees, or those who are serious about it, and even those who are kind of getting started with bees. And want to kind of go back to some of the bee basics, and maybe some things I've learned over the years, maybe some thoughts I have on that, and ways that maybe you can prevent some of the things I've done wrong in the past, and maybe get started on a strong footing. And some of these ideas, I think, will be shared by those who listen to this or watch this video or listen to this chat. Some of those things everyone's going to probably agree with. Some they probably won't, but it's just my personal experience. And I'm trying to kind of make this channel something, that's more of it has an appeal to people all over the country, all over the world, some more bee basic type stuff. And so I hope that the topics I address today, even though it's probably, I think my friend Brian Coper is like in the single digits, if not colder, up in Ohio where he's at. Here, it's not nearly that cold, but it is dark and dreary, and so it applies. But I want to talk about things that are going to apply anywhere in the world that you listen to this video. So this is going to be real basic stuff, and it's going to be my opinion, and hopefully it'll be helpful to somebody out there. The first thing I like to talk to, for those who might be looking at getting into beekeeping, is that there are three basic categories of beekeepers that you hear out there in the world. And the first is the hobby beekeeper. Hobbyist is what they're known as kind of in the beekeeping world. The hobbyist beekeeper is one who has some hives, just a few hives, whether it's in their backyard or in the back pasture or just in some place not even on their property, but they're doing it as a hobby. That's how that's when I got started. That's what I thought I would be, as a hobby beekeeper, is to have a couple of colonies and a couple of hives there to just look into and be able to learn about bees. And so that's what I think probably a vast majority, the largest number of beekeepers I would say in the world are probably hobby beekeepers. When you say a number of colonies, that's kind of, you could have 50 colonies and be a hobby beekeeper, where you just don't really, it's just fun for you. You're not really trying to make a living at it. My guess is if you have that many, you're probably in the next category. But, I think of a hobby beekeeper as being someone like my friend Brian Coper, Castle Hives. He tries to stay around 15 to 20 tops, if he may get a few more, a few less. But he just wants it he loves to do it. It's a hobby to him. Now, he does sell some honey. He does some things like that, which everybody should, in my opinion, if you want to make a little bit of money, at least enough to pay for the beekeeping addiction. I think you should sell some bee products, and it's to me it's real satisfying to pull the honey, the beeswax, and things like that, and be able to take the creation of the bees and share it with others, whether for a profit or just as gifts. I think it's a great thing, and so to me, that's the hobbyist beekeeper. It's not going to be something that you're going to look at as a stream of income to help provide for your family. It's not going to be looked at as a major business. It's just kind of something that you have for fun, and a lot of your life doesn't depend on it. Really, it's just something you do for fun, as a hobby, as any other hobby that you might have, like golfing or boating or fishing or anything like that. It's just a hobby that you have, but you're not planning on making a living at it or making a significant income. That's what I identify as a hobby beekeeper. Large majority of beekeepers, I think, are in that category. The second category is what I feel like I am. It's they call them sideliners, a sideliner beekeeper. And I personally have, I start off with the 2 colonies. I built up to 150 colonies. I usually run between 100 and 150. Right now, I think I have around 120. I think anywhere between, just say the number, so the number 30, 40, 50 up to 200 or so, I think, or even more. If you're really efficient, might be a sideline beekeeper, a sideliner beekeeper. It's just a part-time job. It's a sideline hustle for me. I say it's just a part-time job. It's way more than that. I think about it a lot. Every spare minute, it seems like I'm thinking about how I can better grow my bees, keep them alive, how I can make a business out of it. And I spend a lot of time bottling honey and selling things and packaging up stuff to ship out. So it is a part-time business for me, though I do have a full-time job. I work as a physical therapist in a local hospital here. So now that's, to me, that's what a sideliner beekeeper is. And there's all variations in all these categories. There's no hard, fast rule as to who is who. And then, of course, the third and probably the most grueling type of beekeeping is commercial beekeepers. And commercial beekeepers are people who do it as their full time income. That's what they do for a living. That's how they provide for their families, put food on the table, and it is their life. And I think full time beekeepers, commercial beekeepers, can be anywhere from 300 or 400 colonies, all the way up to tens of thousands of colonies. And there's so many different opportunities of things that they can do, that any of us can do, really, from commercial beekeepers, and I've even been involved in some of these things myself as a sideliner. You can do pollination services. Of course, you can sell the honey, the products from the hive, and you can sell bees, queens. You can do this at any level, honestly, but there's so many different opportunities out there as beekeepers. And so those are the 3 basic types or categories of beekeepers, and there is no hard, fast rule. Some people may say there is a hard, fast rule, but I say there is not. I've seen people in all 3 categories of all different sizes and shapes and sizes of colonies, styles of beekeeping, and different goals and opportunities out there. So I think most watching this video or listening after the fact are probably in that, I would guess, in that hobby beekeeping category. And I gear my channel hopefully towards people primarily probably in the more hobby / sideliner style. Most commercial beekeepers kind of have a system they've figured out, and they do pretty well with that. And I learn a lot from them, probably not a whole lot the other way around. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to talk about today, was the types of beekeepers. Once again, we're keeping it basic here. I'd like to go into the next topic I'd like to talk about is, basic things needed to get started with bees. What do you have to keep bees? First of all, I would say you have to have protective gear. I think that's important. Now, some people work their bees without any protective gear, and that's fine. But as a new beekeeper, I'd recommend you get some protective gear just to make sure that you're safe and protected. You can have an enjoyable experience. So, I personally currently wear the Sting Stopper jacket from Foxhound Beekeeping Supplies in Birmingham, Alabama. Actually, they're in Irondale now. And I also have worn the Guardian Bee apparel in the past with good success. Good success. I really like the Guardian Bee apparel as well. I don't particularly care for the big beekeeping gloves, the bulky gloves, the leather gloves. I can't. I don't feel like I have good dexterity with those gloves, and I just don't care for them. A lot of people continue to use those, and that's fine. But I use Venom Steel. They're black nitrile gloves, and I order them by box of 500 off Amazon, and they work well for me. Now, I will tell you this: they will get you around the wrist. Sometimes you got to make sure that the cuff of your jacket is secure around your wrist, and the gloves are either tucked up under there well or over the top. And the Venom Steel gloves are not very long, and they are tough gloves, but you will get stung some even with those on, but they tend to not sting very much, in my opinion. Excuse me. In my opinion, it is a myth, at least with gloves, at least in my experience, that the bees hate black and they will sting black more than anything else. I've worn these black gloves and they don't. I rarely get stung through the gloves. Occasionally, I will if I put my hand on one, or sting through a finger, or they're just really angry. They can get me occasionally through the gloves, but it's rare. And that's just kind of something, in my opinion, that's kind of a myth that they don't like dark colors. I've worn, when it's cold outside, I wear a black jacket sometimes with just a veil over my shoulders, and the bees don't seem any more angry at me if I'm wearing that dark color or white, or the sting stopper jackets are actually kind of an olive color. It seems to be just fine. So that's just my personal opinion. Once again, most of what I say on here is my personal opinion. So take it or leave it. That's just what I believe. As far as complete bee suits, and that is obviously an option. And some people wear those. I know a lot of the commercial guys, when they have to work fast in their bees, they'll go ahead and wear those, especially if the bees are at a kind of a bad time of the year when the bees might be a little bit more agitated. Like right now, today, if I had to work bees, if I was a commercial guy, obviously the bees would not be happy because it's drizzly, cold, rainy. It's not too cold to get into them. It's probably, I don't know what, 50s today, maybe. I'm not sure what exactly the temperature is here, but the bees would not be thrilled if I got in them today. And so sometimes even the commercial guys will wear entire suits on days like that, just because they have to move fast and the bees will be a little more agitated. And honestly, with suits or with bee pants, Guardian has a bee pants you can wear, and I have a pair of those. You can actually wear shorts under those, and they're ventilated. I would recommend a ventilated bee jacket to start off with. And the bee, because it's cooler, it allows air to ventilate through the jacket or the pants. And if you can wear shorts with those bee suits on, with the ventilated bee suits on, or the bee pants on, and the bees can't get you, and it really helps them to be a little cooler than wearing a long jeans or pants, and they work well. So I'd also recommend, if you're gonna, I like to wear boots. I wear just my regular tennis shoes a lot of the time, but if it's going to be a time when the bees are pretty agitated, a lot of my bees are on pallets, then they'll get you around the ankles, and it's a good idea to wear boots, and especially if you got the bee pants, the bee suits on, that'll help keep the bees from getting up into your legs and getting you that way. So just a thought that you can do there. I've had a couple of people want to come out and observe bees with me, and they show up and they're just not equipped. I've got a jacket I can let them borrow, but they're not equipped down low. Like they've got tennis shoes on with ankle socks, and it just doesn't work very well that way. They will get in, and I'm going to tell you this, my opinion now. This is my opinion. Ankle stings right around your ankles are just some of the most painful stings you can have. At least in my particular experience, I'd rather get stung almost in the face than in an ankle. It's just so painful. And when you're walking on your ankles and they start to swell up, it can be quite miserable. So, just a thought there, just a little bit of advice of what I would do. I would, bare minimum, have a bee jacket and gloves of some kind, and make sure you wear long pants when you're out working your bees. And then if you want to get a suit, some people start off with a suit just because they're comfortable with that, and then they end up, kind of using a jacket most of the time. That's perfectly fine. Get the most equipment that you think is going to be appropriate. You can always back off from that. But if you get into some bees and you're really nervous, to me it feels like the bees can sense that a little bit, and so they'll be a little more. They'll get after you a little bit, and obviously, if you're not used to being stung, it can make you a little bit tentative and nervous, and it can just turn into just a crazy thing for you, and it might be miserable. So don't, just make sure you're protected. Get out there, get the gear, get the things you need to be protected and safe. Obviously, I think it's important to have a smoker. Now, when I talk about equipment here, I want you to realize that you can get equipment that's very cheap. You can get equipment off Amazon that's really cheap and inexpensive. You can get boxes, you can get smokers, hive tools, everything, jackets that are just really, really cheap. But in my opinion, after doing this for the last, 12, 13 years, I guess 12 years now, I just think it's worth it to go ahead and spend a little bit extra money and get some good quality equipment to start off with. It'll save you a lot of headaches, especially like with the jacket. You can buy a little fabric jacket for 40 bucks or whatever, but it's really thin. The bees can sting through it, and it's super hot because they don't ventilate. I would just go ahead and spend the first thing I would get probably would be a bee jacket. Like I said, the sting stopper is $159. And I'll try and put a link at the bottom of this for that product, the Sting Stopper jacket. I couldn't get it to upload or on when I created the video today, but maybe it's fixed and I can get it on there after the video is over. But just you tap on the video or look in the description below and you'll see the link for that. That's what I would kind of recommend. Those Sting Stopper jackets are true to size. Whatever size t-shirt you wear, that's what you want to get. And there are measurements and everything on the website to help you figure that out. But just spend a little bit extra money. If you're serious about becoming a beekeeper and start off with a jacket, just get that to start off with, and maybe some gloves, whatever you want to use. And that's the number one thing I would get. But as far as boxes go, smoker, I personally used just the basic smoker from Man Lake for a while. Then I got one from Hilco, pretty good smoker. I finally went out and just bought a Daydant, which is the kind of the top of the line smoker you can get, made in America type smoker. And that thing has been through it. I have beat that thing up. It's got dents in it. The way I light it now, I use a blowtorch on the side of it, and it's lasted me for 2 or 3 years that way. You're going to pay more for it, but it's not as much as you would think. I think the Daydant, this one I bought was I think $69, and you can the cheap ones are like, the size I get are like 40 bucks, and so spend an extra 20 or 30 bucks and get a smoker that's going to last you longer. That'd be my recommendation. But you can get whatever you want. This is just my experience talking here. As far as bee boxes and frames go, the boxes, I think you can get, once again, very cheap boxes. You can buy boxes that are unassembled that you can put together. Sometimes that's a fun experiment or a fun thing for people to do. And you can put them together, paint them, all the things. And that's fine. I'm not going to talk about all break down the hive piece by piece here because that's not really what this video is about. But once again, the boxes that I have, if you look on my videos, you'll see that I have boxes that I built myself. I have boxes that are falling apart that I've got from other people, or some that I bought new and painted and they're starting to rot. I've got boxes, all shapes, sizes, forms. I've got Apame boxes. I've tried a lot of different things. But right now, my current favorite box, and the box that I kind of am recommending now, is the Endura Hive wax tip boxes from Greg Burns at Nature's Image Farm. He is a friend of mine. Full disclosure, Greg is a friend of mine. His boxes are more expensive than what you'll find in most places, but I think they'll last for many, many years. No painting needed. You make the boxes, you put them on the hives, you're ready to go. Have the bottom boards, the lids, and everything. You get it from him. But once again, you can get any box you want, but you can save yourself a lot of headache and a lot of painting and time and labor if you just go ahead and get kind of the better stuff to start off with. And I think I definitely recommend, after trying all the different types of things out there, I recommend the wax tip products. I think they just work well. And if you watch Greg's stuff, he does have he kind of does a little bit different than other folks. And I believe his products are really good. I get the top line, I get the Endura Hive Propola wax tip boxes. I really like them. But once again, I'm not telling you should do that. I'm just saying that's kind of what I've kind of learned over the years, is just go ahead and spend a little extra money up front, and then you'll be able to have things that last longer and not fall apart. So those are the boxes. Of course, once again, hive tool, you can get hive tools. There are different styles. I might try a couple of different styles when you get started, and see which one you like best. There are 3 or 4 different kinds, basic styles of beekeeping tools that you can use, hive tools you can use. And my favorite hive tool is the Hive Alive tool. It's got a little hook, a J hook on it. Plus, it has the bent. I don't have one in here with me, but it's got the standard hive tool. It's got the features of both the J hook and the standard hive tool. And it's the Hive Alive seems to be a little thicker steel, so it's a little tougher. But you can buy hive tools. You can find them anywhere. So I think that's super important. So the main things you need to get started with bees: you need protective gear, you need a smoker, a hive tool, and of course the hives, the actual hive bodies. I put my bees on pallets, but you need some sort of bottom board, and that's debatable. Whatever you want to do, screened or solid. I only use solid bottom boards. I don't really see the need to get screen bottom boards, but some people really believe in them, and that's something you got to kind of figure out, in your area what people are using, what they like the best. You need, I personally, you can use deep boxes, which are typically used for the brood boxes in beekeeping, and then you can also get medium boxes or deep boxes for your honey. Some people run all mediums, some people run all deeps, and that's once again, that's an opinion thing. If I were starting out now, and I'm gonna, and some people may disagree with me, but it's very possible, if knowing what I know now, especially as I'm getting a little bit older, I might go with 8 frame equipment, and I might go with deeps for the brood boxes, and mediums for the honey, kind of like I do now with my 10 frame boxes. But the standard, more people use 10 frame boxes than others. They're probably a little easier to find, but you can get 8 frame equipment as well. It's lighter weight, and the bees do really like the 8 frame equipment, and they explode up through it. But a good type of bee will explode up through any type of equipment that you have. Um, Inner covers, I don't use inner covers. I use what they call migratory lids, which is basically just put a lid. It has like a cleat on each end, and you put it on top. I prefer the lids that have it's called a patty rim on the inside. It raises the top of the lid up a little bit ways away from the frame, so you can put pollen patties or food fondant in there. There's a little bit of room to put treatments and things in there in the top, a little bit of space. They call them patty rims, patty rims, I think is how you spell that. And so, but the problem, here's a disadvantage to having patty rims, is that the bees will they will build burr comb all up in there, which I kind of like it, because personally, I scrape that beautiful burr comb out, and I can reprocess it. And especially if honey flow, man, that stuff is so white and precious and beautiful. And but it can be a pain in the tail if you just want to work fast. Some people will put, I can't think of what it's called. It's like a silver material in there that lays flat on the hives, helps keep the bees from doing that, building that burr comb. Reflectix, I think, is what it's called. Cut it to the size of the top and put it on there. But that's just up to you. You can use an inner cover if you want. I just don't use those typically. And then the lid, there's many types of lids. Once again, the telescoping lid goes all the way around the side, like fits on there like a roof. Migratory lids, they got all kinds of fancy ones you can get out there, whatever you want to do. So I personally just recommend basic bee equipment, get high quality equipment. The frames need to be heavy waxed. I get most of my frames now. I've got all types of stuff in my hives. I've got all plastic. I've got wood frames from different companies. Most recently, I've been buying, since I get my equipment from Greg, he uses the Pura frames from Premier. The important thing about frames, I believe, more than anything else, is the heavy wax. They need to be waxed really heavily. If you buy the cheap stuff on Amazon, odds are it won't be well waxed. And who knows if it's even what you're getting? Who knows if it's even beeswax? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I'd recommend definitely getting heavily waxed frames, whatever type of frames you get. Make sure that when you buy it, it smells like beeswax. It smells really good. If not, then the bees, they'll just build it all kinds of wonky, weird burr comb on there, and it'll be miserable trying to get them to draw that stuff out. So another thing you can do, if you have access to beeswax, is you can roll another coat on there if you want to. A lot of people recommend that. My friend Stan Gore takes it from the Beekeepers. I think he re-rolls, puts another layer of beeswax on every frame, even the new ones, and the bees will jump on that maybe a little faster than the others. But I personally just throw them in there heavy wax. They do well, and I like to get the heaviest wax possible. Now I'm not sure what Greg sends me. Whatever he sends me works well. The bees draw it right out, so it works well. Those are some ideas on equipment. Those are the basics you need. Obviously, there are more things that you can get, different types of feeders, different types of things, but those are the basics to get started. You need the bee boxes, you need the frames, you need the bottom board, you need the lid, you need a smoker, hive tool, and protective gear. And hopefully, we'll be able to get into more things in the future. The next thing you need to get started in bees is obviously the bees themselves. Many ways to do that. Number one, you can catch swarms, which can be, if you're a new beekeeper, that can be, you want your bees, right? And you're not always guaranteed you're going to get a swarm. And so I would recommend the main two ways that I think people typically get started in bees is via packages. A package of bees is basically a hive of bees that they send to you, a colony of bees that is it's just a queen and a clump of bees. They come in different sizes. I think 3 pound, if I'm not mistaken, is probably the most common size of of packages that you get, which is around, I think, 10,000 bees. It sounds like a lot, but really it's not. And they put a queen in there. And obviously, we're not going to get into how to install packages here. I've actually never installed one, but I've seen them, and I think it would be pretty easy to do now that I've got the experience I have. But that's kind of one way to get started. You buy your equipment, you buy your frames, you install your package, and off you go. You feed the bees, and off you go. It usually starts in the springtime. Personally, my experience is I bought nucleus colonies, which is typically, most nukes I think are 5 frame deep nukes. They call them nukes, NUCS, short for nucleus. And a nucleus colony is everything you need. It's got a queen, you've got frames, you've got brood. 5 frames drawn out. Typically, a good strong nucleus colony will have, 2 to 3 frames of brood, and at least one good frame of pollen, honey, some food on there, and then maybe a nearly blank frame, or a frame that's kind of drawn out, that's not, full of everything. You may and or you may have, 2 to 3 frames of brood and then 2 frames of food in there that are drawn out, but they are ready to go. They're ready to put in your colony and in your hive box, and they're ready to go. You put them in an 8 or 10 frame box. You put the empty frames in there. Probably the best way to install nucleus colonies or nukes is to just, I guess, drop the nuke right in the middle and then put the new frames on the outside, especially early in the spring when it might be cold. There are other ways to do it, but that's one way to do it. So once again, this video is not about how to do that, but those are the main 2 ways to do this. Now, the personally, my personal opinion is I kind of prefer nukes because I feel like I get everything I need there with some established colony, though it may be small, and everything ready to explode into the spring. The danger you run into with nucleus colonies, though, is there's just all different kinds of quality. Some people are really careful to make sure you get a good quality nuke that's got plenty of brood, is set up for success, low mite counts, low pest issues, and they're ready to go. And some people might sell you one that's just kind of junk, and as a new beekeeper, you may not know the difference. And so they can be a little risky sometimes, these nukes, and they may say they're an overwintered colony nuke. And what does that mean? Who knows how old that queen is? Maybe that queen's a year old. Maybe she was a queen that was created in the fall. Maybe she's pretty young. Maybe she's at least a year. Maybe she's more. You just really don't know what you're getting. And you got to be able to trust your beekeeper and the people you buy from. And that's kind of a difficult thing to pin that down exactly how to know. But those are the main 2 things. Packages, I think, also are varying quality, though I am not an expert, or I haven't seen a lot of packages out there. I'm not sure how to really even describe quality in packages, but some people in the comments might be able to help you out with that as we go along. Trying to catch swarms, you can set up swarm traps, which is difficult if you don't have any equipment, if you don't have any drawn comb already. You can just put the word out that, if you see a clump of bees hanging in a tree or hanging on a limb, I want to come get them. I want to be a beekeeper. I want to come catch the swarm. But if you've never caught one before, it can be exhilarating, but it can also be a little bit scary if you don't know what you're doing the first time. And so that's the way some people get started. I caught a lot of swarms early in the game. Some of them were from my own hives, and I was driving all over the area here catching swarms, and it is a lot of fun. But the risk with catching swarms too is you have no idea what you're getting. Some swarms you'll put in a hive box and they will just explode. They'll make you honey the first year. Even some of the smaller swarms I've caught have done really well. Say a volleyball size swarm, I've had them blow up and make me honey the first year. But some of them look impressive, but they die out, fizzle out really quickly. And some of them become really mean, at least in my experience. A lot of the local swarms I've caught, my bees had a reputation for a while of being feisty and mean. And so I've kind of fixed that by bringing in some different genetics of queens. And now my bees are overall, on average, much nicer. But when you catch feral swarms, you don't know where they come from. You have no idea what their situation. They might be full of mites. They might have all kinds of issues with viruses, disease, and so it is a little bit risky, but it's fun. It's all fun. It's all things you can do to learn, and nothing wrong with that. So anyway, those are some ways to get bees. As far as type of bees, that once again is something that as you have bees, you need to learn. The most common type of bee out there is an Italian or an Italian cross, some sort of an Italian bee. Overall, Italians are, in general, I think, probably the most forgiving type bees you can have. They are many times they're pretty gentle, not always. They're pretty gentle. They're typically pretty good honey producers. They grow and they kind of do what you expect bees to do. Now that's not every Italian bee is not like that, because I don't know if there's any such thing as really a purebred bee now. Bees are, they have one reason bees have survived for so long is because they are very diversified in their genetics, and I think most bees have a little bit of everything in them. But a heavily influenced Italian bee is going to be a pretty good bee, I think, for starters. You have carniolan bees. They are darker in color typically. They're very gentle in my experience. They do brood way back in the wintertime here in the South. I'm not sure. Once again, I'm a Southern beekeeper. I hope basic principles apply everywhere. I want it to be a global channel, but my experience here is that the carniolans breed back more in the wintertime. Nothing down here breeds all the way back. They breed back more in the wintertime. Very gentle, and then they explode in the spring when the honey comes in. And so they don't require as many resources in the wintertime. They're very productive. They're a very good bee as well. And then your Caucasian bees is what I think a lot of people. Greg Burns has heavily influenced Caucasian bees. Bob Benny has a lot of Caucasian heavily influenced bees. Also very, very gentle bees, very good bees, very dark colored bees. And then Cordovan bees are almost gold or orange, rusty in color. They're beautiful, beautiful bees, and very gentle, super productive, make a lot of brood. Don't always make as much honey in my experience. Some of the ones I've had have blown up in population. Sometimes they will make a lot of honey. The ones I have now that I prefer, I think, are more like Italian Cordovan cross, and they are really good bees that I have now. A lot of the ones that I have. So some things to consider with bees. So many different things you can learn, and so many. It can be very confusing at times, but I might recommend just kind of going with some standard, maybe Italian bees to start off with, and then you can grow from there and decide what you want to do. When it comes to knowledge, you have to obviously have knowledge to keep bees. As a brand new beekeeper, uh, and even now, still I'm a sponge. I try to learn from everyone. I have the things that I feel like work for me pretty well, but there's still so many different ways to do things, and so it can be very confusing and very frustrating, I think, at the same time. However, I think the best way to gain knowledge is to open up the beehive and get in there and see what you got. I think it's a good idea to read books. There's a lot of books out there. Um, I don't do a lot of reading of beekeeping books. When I got started, I read Beekeeping for Dummies. I've got the Beekeeping Bible. I've got several beekeeping books, and I haven't read them all. Um, but the best teachers for me are the bees themselves. So you have to have a basic knowledge of what you're seeing in the hive. And so that you just get bees and put them in a hive, it can be very frustrating and discouraging because you don't know what you're seeing. You don't know if they're strong. You don't know if they're weak. You don't know what you're doing. And so books are good. YouTube, this is YouTube right here. This is where my platform. And so I do like YouTube. However, you have to take everything you hear, including this video right now, with a grain of salt, because it really is regional. I'm here in the South, and people in the North, it's an entirely different strategy for keeping bees. And so you need to kind of hook up with someone in your area, learn how to keep bees in your specific area. Even right here in Alabama, we keep bees differently. North Alabama is different than South Alabama. There are people, just south of me in Florida, south of I-10 down there, that, there's an entirely different flora, entirely different way of keeping bees. And so, you just gotta kind of figure out what works best for you, not only because of your variation in your climate and the floral sources for the bees, the food sources, also just your very style. It just depends. And so it's going to be, anytime someone tells you that this is the only way to do something, like this is my way to do it, and it's the only way that's going to be successful, I think you need to run as fast as you can from that person, because you have to learn. You have to learn. The Bee Connection says on here, the saying is, it depends. And that's true. It does definitely depend. Let's see here. So I'm trying to flag a few questions here as we go. I'm not sure if we're gonna have time to answer many of these, but maybe we will. So those are kind of some ideas. The next topic I had here was what is the best way to get started? We've kind of addressed that a little bit already. Some things that you need as far as equipment, bees, and knowledge. But if you want to start keeping bees, I would recommend, if possible, to find yourself a mentor locally. And I'm going to qualify that a little bit. Don't just find someone that has bees and just think that you're going to learn all the things you need to learn from them. You can learn from anyone the basics. You can learn what a queen looks like. You can learn what the worker bee looks like, what a drone looks like. You can learn the basic makeup of a hive body with the boxes, the frames, the bottom board and the lid. You can see it in action. You can look at their bees. But I would recommend that you try and find a mentor that has bees that they keep alive every year, that they have success keeping their bees alive through the winter and in the tough times of year. And they also have success with the goals that you have, making honey. In other words, try and find a beekeeper that kind of is, in your opinion, successful. Someone that actually has live bees that look healthy and strong. And I'd also recommend that when you get started, you start with 2 to 4 colonies. Now, the reason for that is that, if you just buy one beehive and put bees in it, you have no idea if you're a brand new beekeeper, if they're strong or weak. And even I, with the experience I have, if I move to Indiana, for example, and if I wanted to keep bees in Indiana, and I have one colony, I with the experience I have in Alabama, if I went to Indiana, I wouldn't know honestly if they looked how they should look during that part of the year. But in my opinion, if you buy 2 to 4 hives and put bees in them, you can compare them. You can learn. You have more material to learn from. If you open those hives up, you get in them. You can learn more about them. You'll see how each colony has a personality of its own. You can tell if they look different. If you have 3 that look really one way and one that looks another way, you can tell that there's a difference. So you have 3 that the first year you buy them, they build up into 2 boxes. They look really healthy and strong, bees everywhere. And then one of them never gets out of the first box, or they start to fizzle out. You'll know there's something wrong. Whereas if you just have that one colony that's weak, you might think they're perfectly fine and not address the issue. So those are some things. That's how you learn. I think the best is to get at least 2 to 4 colonies. I would spend the extra money. I think beekeeping it's not cheap. It's not free. Be willing to spend a little bit of money to get into this thing and be willing to be tenacious, as Bob Benny says, and be willing to give it a shot, a real shot. Um, Also, I would recommend, I've seen some people in here, one person at least mentioned that they're going to, um, just are thinking about getting into bees soon. He's wanted bees for a while, getting in here soon. What I tell people when they say I want to get bees, this is what I typically tell them. I say, get yourself a bee jacket and come hang with me. Let's just go out there. Let's see if it really is for you. Because I really hate the fact that a lot of people buy equipment. They spend hundreds, if not, some people spend upwards of $1,000 or more dollars. They buy all the equipment, they get the bees, they stick them in boxes, and they don't know what they're doing. They get confused, they get discouraged. Their bees die. They have issues. They don't know what they're seeing. They get stung, and then they just quit. And they've got $1,000, $1,500 worth of equipment sitting in a garage or sitting out on a stand somewhere that's vacant. That's money they would have never spent probably had they come and hung out with someone who was successful or who had some bees and could explain things to them. They might have realized before they ever bought the equipment that it just wasn't for them. And beekeeping isn't for everybody. So my recommendation is try and find someone local that'll let you hang out with them and get yourself a bee jacket, spend $160 or so, or $100, $200, whatever, and just go hang out with them and just get in the bees, learn about the bees, and try and do that like now. Or it's a little cold in certain parts of the country now. Probably now is not the best time, but even if you wait another year, at least in the early spring, try and get in some bees with them, and then you can get your bees a little bit later in the spring. But that's just my opinion. It's worked well for me. I've had several people that have come with me. Some have ended up getting bees, but probably more than not have not ended up getting bees after they hang out with me, just because they see, I think, the work that's involved, and they see that maybe it's just not for them, or maybe they realize it's just not something they want to do. So that would be my recommendation for someone looking at getting into bees. I would encourage you, if you get into bees, to keep an open mind when it comes to things such as treating and feeding your bees. There are a lot of people out there that, I think most beekeepers probably treat for mites, beetles, and various pests. I do. There are also some very successful treatment-free beekeepers that don't do treatments or don't do any type of mite control type treatments on their bees, as far as putting something in the hive to kill the mites, as far as whether it be a chemical or an organic compound that effectively kills the beetles, or not, beetles too, but the mites. Small hive beetles is another issue that can happen, especially here in the South and certain parts of the country. I hate small hive beetles, and there are ways to address them as well. But just be very careful. I would personally, I would encourage you initially to try to do everything you can to keep the pests down, the mites, the beetles, until you learn to understand beekeeping better. There are some successful people. I had a discussion with one yesterday in a Facebook thread, and he is treatment free and he's successful at it. But he puts a lot of time and effort into watching his bees very closely. He has a queen breeding program, and he breeds from the best. He does, he's very careful. The thought that you can just throw 10 beehives out there, 10 colonies of bees in a beehive, and just eight of them dying, you keep the two strongest, and then you keep adding to it until eventually, survival of the fittest type thing. That to me is a flawed principle. That's kind of what I tried to do a little bit at the beginning, and I just got devastated for a few years before I decided to start treating again. If you're going to try and go treatment free in the future, you need to understand bee biology. You need to understand how to work with genetics to try and go in that direction. And personally, it's easier for me just to go ahead and treat, and I'll leave it up to the guys that are developing, that are doing breeding of queens to try and come up with maybe a solution to that in the future. But that's just my opinion. Don't close your mind to treating and feeding your bees as well. Sometimes you just have to, in my opinion, feeding them some sugar syrup, and pollen supplement is not a bad thing, especially if you want to have your bees prepped, ready to explode in the spring. Here in the South, we don't have to use a lot of pollen stuff. We have pollen coming in most of the year, but in other parts of the country, it really helps stimulate your bees in the spring. And certain times of the year helps keep them from starving. Once again, we could do an entire chat, and we may in the future, on just feeding, how to feed or when to feed or what to do. And we have stream team videos on that. A lot of information on my channel. I talk about that some too, but just keep an open mind, I think, to all things. But I would start off personally in a more traditional way. And then as you gain experience, maybe try and veer off into some more uh, specialized type ways of keeping your bees. That's just what I would do. um, like to talk a little bit about goals. You can morph your beekeeping adventure into anything you want. That's one thing I love about it. Is it's also one thing that's very frustrating. Is there are so many things that you'll see when you're dealing with bees. You'll see, uh, so many opportunities. Some people do well making just honey. That's their main goal. That's kind of what my goal has been over the years, is honey and products from the hive. Some people hate dealing with honey. They just as soon use honey to feed new splits and just roll with making bees and selling bees. Some people focus on queen rearing. That's what they do for a living. Some people do a little bit of all of it. And so there's so many different things you can do with bees. It's a beautiful thing, really. And I would encourage you to kind of just get a couple of colonies, get started, just try it out. First of all, find yourself a mentor, get yourself a bee jacket, get your arms in some bees, get your hands in some bees for a little bit. And if you decide to do it, go ahead and get the equipment, get the bees, and then just learn. Just learn what to do. I failed to mention earlier, you could join a local bee club as well. Those can be very good. There are some really good ones out there. There's some that are not as helpful, but try to find someone where you can have some community. Of course, we're your community here on YouTube. I love having you as a part of my community and the stream team between myself, Greg, and Brian. Greg at Nature's Image Farm and Brian at Castle Hives. We love to have you as a part of our community. There are some tremendous conferences coming up. The Bee Expo up in Louisville, Kentucky is coming up in January, as well as many other. I'm going to be at one in Wisconsin. There's so many good bee conferences all over the place. You could probably get one close to you if you pay attention to what's going on, where you can learn from some pros that kind of has some ideas on how to keep bees and manage the products from the hive. So also a lot of those conferences will have really good deals on equipment too. So I'd recommend you kind of look into some of those. I don't go to a lot of conferences, but the ones I've been to have been really good, and I've learned a lot. It's been really pretty neat. And so, but the cool thing about beekeeping is you can start off like I did with a couple of colonies, and you can just keep the 2 colonies or build to 10 or 15 or whatever, if that's your goal. And you can just stay there just to have some bees because you enjoy having the bees. They pollinate your stuff. You get a little honey off of it to eat yourself and to sell, maybe to keep the addiction going, so to speak. And then sometimes, you might be just like me and become completely addicted and hooked on the bees and want to grow and turn it into a business. Even if you have a full-time job, you can grow to whatever you want to, whatever you can handle, and you can make some extra money. which is what I do. My bees have been really good to me. I've been blessed to be able to have some success with these bees and make a little bit of money. My primary stream of income has been the honey sales, although now I do sell some beeswax products. I've got a few of those now at brucesbees.com. And I sell a few bees here or there, but I've done very little of that. It's mostly my main stream of income has been honey. I really enjoy the honey part of it. It's hard work, but I love it. Some people hate it, like I said earlier. So kind of whatever you want to do. That's one of the beautiful things about beekeeping. Um, and so, excuse me just a sec. I've been battling a cold for here for it seems like a couple of weeks. It's been very frustrating. Um, but that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Let me see if there's any. I've got a few things started here. Not very. I've kind of been talking. Haven't really spent a lot of time starring comments. So hopefully I'm sure I probably missed a few. But let's start off with this one. Comment from Dennis Sherrill. I believe Dennis is an Alabama guy as well. Do I ever equalize my bees? He asked. He says, Dennis Sherrill says, Bruce, do you ever equalize your bees? I do a little bit, Dennis, but I never go through and just make sure they're all the same. A lot of guys do that. A lot of commercial guys do that. I kind of just let my strong ones rock on, and my weak ones, I just kind of I don't put as much effort into them. And I just take from I did a video last summer during the honey flow, during the honey time of the year, where I think I titled the video where I talked about robbing from the poor and giving to the rich. If you even got your boxes stacked up with honey supers, some of the bees will fill 2 and 3 and 4 boxes, and then others can barely get out of the brood box. And so if I stack a couple of honey supers on a hive that's not filling them up, I'll just take at least 1 or 2 of those empty honey supers and put them on a strong one that I know will fill them up. And so I'm a little ruthless, a little tough on the bees. I just feel like I want my strong ones to be strong, and I really don't want to nurse along weak ones. Now, if it's a brand new split or a late season split, that needs some help, that needs some brood, then I'll add a frame of brood here or there. But I'll do a little bit of it then. But I never go through and just make sure all my hives are the same size. I rarely ever do that. I just don't. I kind of just let them do what they can do, and if they fizzle out, I replace the queen or combine them and just move on. That's kind of the point I've gotten to now. Great question. Thanks, Dennis. This is a good question or a good comment here from Tom Houston. I love this. He says, Hey, Bruce, I'm 64 and retired. Am I crazy for getting into beekeeping this spring? I would say absolutely not, Tom. I think it's been really good for a lot of people in retirement that have gotten into it. I know at least 1 or 2 people here locally in my local area here that have done that and have been very successful at it. People in their 60s and 70s probably that one of them is one of the guys that I recommend for bee removals. He does bee removals. He has a background and he understands a lot about construction of homes. And he's turned that into a little side business. So that's not, he doesn't do it for the business part of it, but he does it to help people out. He does charge to do that. But absolutely, I think I'm excited for you to get started and keep us posted on how you do, Tom. I think that's a great idea. But just remember to if you like it, if you love it, just don't give up if it gets tough, because sometimes those bees are real tough to keep alive. PG Brierley says, good morning. How do you keep shipping costs down? Pensacola, Florida. I have a website. I use Shopify, and that does help keep shipping costs down. I'm sure there are different companies out there, and I'm not an expert at that, but when you think about how much honey, how much it would cost to send a 10-pound box of honey to someone, it would be astronomical if you just go to the post office and have them charge you for it. But Shopify, because you do pay a fee to be a part of Shopify, and you are part of their system. It's kind of they create you have your own website and everything with them, and they kind of just take care of a lot of that stuff for you. And the shipping costs are reduced. It's not free by any stretch, but the shipping costs are much less, I've found, as I use Shopify. Like, for example, and it gives you many options. It'll give you UPS, USPS, FedEx, give the different tiers that you can get at the post office or at the different places. And, but say, for example, I was going to send a box that would normally be $18 through UPS. the Shopify might be like 11 or $12 or something like that to ship. And so you do get a little better deal if you go through Shopify, or there are other companies that do that. I'm not sure what they are, but I know there's other companies that do that as well. I want to kind of start to close this thing down, but I did want to talk a little bit now. Those who've stuck with me to the end here, those who are familiar with the channel, or even if you're not, I want to talk a little about. First of all, I want to encourage you to, if you want to do bees, do bees. I mean, and don't get frustrated. Don't get involved in these Facebook forums where people just tear each other down and give each other a hard time. I just am not about that. I think we're on here. We should be building each other up. Part of the stream team, one of our mottos is to be the lighthouse for those around us. And I think that I try to do a little bit of that, hopefully through the videos that I have, and I think that's how we should all be, even as brand new beekeepers. If as we learn things, we should be willing to share, keep an open mind, learn, and then share. And so I would definitely recommend just keeping a good attitude. I'd like to encourage everyone, even and now if you're an experienced beekeeper, if you have bees for a while, and if you're struggling with it, if you're losing some, we know of a guy up in Ohio that lost, I think, down like from 50 to 3, I think, colonies last winter. Last year was brutal in that area. A lot of people lost a large percentage of their colonies, or maybe he went all the way down to 1. I can't remember, but it was horrible. And what did he do? He started over this year and he's built up to he had a nice year, a good year. And so if you're determined to do it, if you love it, just be tenacious and hang in there. Um, don't allow yourself to Well, everyone gets discouraged. I get discouraged. I get frustrated, but don't allow that to dominate your thought pattern. Don't just get out of bees because you get a little bit burnt out. Because what happens to me every year is late summer, early fall, I get burned out. Really, I do, because there's so much work and effort I put into it. But right now I'm starting to get excited again because 2026 is coming. The bees are looking pretty good overall, and I'm hoping for a great year again in 2026. So that hope is what keeps us going. And then I just absolutely love, there's something about getting in bees. What is it about those bugs in a box? It's Greg Burns. He has a video on that. You could look it up. Just type in bugs in a box. It probably pop up on YouTube. But what is it about those bugs in a box? Everybody has their own story. And it's just a little bit of a chance, I think, to interact with the divine, interact with God in a way, because there's no way when you crack a beehive open that just happened by chance. It's so perfect. The hexagonal shapes of the comb, the methods, the fact that they bring nectar in and turn it into food that we can eat. Just so many things they do. Propolis, wax. How on earth? What a miracle that is. Everything is just a miracle. It's so cool, and we have a chance to participate in that. We have a chance as humans to be stewards of these beautiful little creatures that God has created. In my opinion, uh, really not a lot different than if you have a herd of cattle or horses or any type of pet, a dog or a cat. It's just we have stewardship, and we have the opportunity to share in in the grand scheme of things a little bit of God's creation, and in the process we can. It's one of the few hobbies that you have that you can make a little bit of money at, or you can at least break even, and you can share these beautiful um, products with all those around. Either sell it or just give it away. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. You can decide that. But just spend the time out there with the bees, cracking the hives open, the smells, the sounds, even the stings out there in mother with nature. It's just a beautiful thing, and I would encourage anyone who wants to do it. If you're willing to give it a try and you're serious about it, just go ahead and give it a try, and maybe go back and listen to the video again here and think of some ideas. Hopefully, that was some helpful information. Now, I want to close with a discussion on the direction of my channel in the future. Upcoming, my goal, my heart has changed a little bit as far as what I want to do. I've been having this kind of a gut feeling that I need to do some things different. I do believe I'll still do some of the traditional vlogging type videos that I've done over the past. I'd like to do more of these type live streams where we talk about specific topics, and maybe some ideas, have more of a discussion, even with folks into the conversation. Maybe I'll bring some guests on and discuss some things one-on-one here, kind of like we do on the stream team. I'd like to do that a little more often, but I really want to reach out. I want it to be more of a channel geared towards kind of how to become successful in beekeeping. And I want to go through maybe start to finish some different things, kind of things to look for I want my videos to maybe be a little more instructional on kind of like what you're seeing. I think I do a pretty good job at that already, but I just want to kind of really help people start off with kind of how to get started in beekeeping and how to be successful in beekeeping. And historically, I've just kind of shown you my story. I've kind of videotaped it and shared it with you. And but I want to kind of move into more of a, I don't know if the word is educational. I don't really like that word that much, but maybe that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is maybe help share some ideas that'll help people succeed in beekeeping, help people know what to do, how to get started, and what to do when they encounter certain problems in the hive. That's kind of what I'm thinking about doing, and whether it be through a live stream / podcast type format, and or in the bee yard, I want to do a little bit of all that. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but that's kind of my goal. And so, if you've watched the channel for any time, you've known that I've kind of discussed a little bit about how times are changing a little bit. I've had a little bit of a stirring to do something a little bit different, and that's kind of where I'm going. The channel, as far as I know, it'll be around. I don't plan on shutting it down, but I do want to change a little bit what I'm doing. So that's kind of where I'm at, and hopefully you'll be able to benefit from this moving forward. And some of the videos may turn into more of an instructional type video, but I don't want you to think that it's a how-to necessarily. Like you have to do it this way. Mike Berry says that he doesn't do how-to videos; that he does how I do videos, and I'm kind of in that same camp. However, I do think as new beekeepers, sometimes folks just want to say, "Hey, I'm seeing mites in my hive, or I'm seeing beetles in my hive. How do I fix it?" So those are the type of things I'm going to try to address certain problems that people may have and help provide solutions that have worked for me. Not that it always works for everyone, but they've worked for me. And that's kind of what my goal is. I've done a little bit of that over the years, but that's kind of where I'm going with this thing. So with that, I would encourage anyone who is either on here live or who listens to it later to um, just shoot many questions you may have. I do see most of the comments that people provide, especially after the fact. It'll come through my feed on my phone. I can see pretty much all the comments. That's how I'm able to answer comments of people who watch a video that I made 5 years ago, is because it pops up on my phone and I get a notification I can answer real quickly. So if you have ideas or things you'd like addressed, I'll try to do it the best I can. And I'm just kind of keep plugging along. I don't know the frequency of the videos. I haven't decided all that yet. Like Saturday morning, who thought I was going to do one this morning? I didn't when I woke up this morning, but I decided to. Such a cold and dreary day, I decided to go ahead and do that. So, um, in closing, I want to just I'll read this comment that just popped up here from Lynn, Anna, and Benji. It says here, one of the beautiful things about becoming a beekeeper is you not only learn about bees, but you become aware of everything around you, your weather patterns, the nectar flow, and the dearth. And that is so true. As you become, I never used to pay attention to what flowers were blooming or when it rained, if that really mattered. I didn't pay much attention to a lot of things. But now that I've got bees, you do become one with nature in a lot of ways. You become much more aware and alert of things going on around you, the environment. Um, you just become much more aware of it. And you can see, honestly, the miracle of the fact that the bees react, how they respond to different things. Honestly, the bees will tell you if there's flowers blooming before you can even see them. They'll tell you if there's a dearth before you really even know, just in the way that they act, the way they store food, the way their attitude. You can learn so much from the bees, and as you gain that experience, that beautiful experience, you'll become a better person for it, and you'll feel more one with nature. And with that, I really appreciate you watching this episode of Let's Talk Bees with Bruce at Bruce's Bees. I do appreciate the community. I appreciate all you guys being out there. And hopefully this information will be a little bit helpful. If you think it has, share it with your friends. And hope to have more coming in the near future. Y'all take care. We'll see you next time.